Hey there, I'm Tomas Michaud from Real Guitar Success. When you're learning guitar online, it's hard to know when you should move on to the next song or exercise. In this video, you'll learn how to make that decision and feel good about your progress. Let's do this. When you're learning guitar online, you're actually taking on two roles. Now, the first role is as a student, and of course that means you're learning and absorbing new material. The second role is that of a coach. As a coach, you're listening to what you play non-judgmentally and making decisions about what to work on more and when it's time to move on to the next lesson or set of materials. One of the questions I get asked fairly often is, how do I know when it's time to move on? How do I know when I've practiced this particular aspect enough and I can move on to either the next lesson or the next set of materials? While there's no exact formula, I found something that works for most people, and I call it the 80% rule. What it means is that you work on something until you feel like you're about 80% on the way to having it perfect. Then you move on to the next thing. You don't want to stay on one thing until it's perfect or even almost perfect. You're likely to get stuck, make very slow progress, and feel frustrated. On the other hand, you don't want to brush through the exercises too quickly because you'll begin to struggle over time and feel more and more incompetent. This is another recipe for feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. The important thing to remember here is that 80% is not an exact number. There's no board of guitar teachers that's going to say, no, that was only 78.2%. You're making a judgment call based on what you think. And over time, you'll find you get better and better at being able to judge how much you need to put into something before moving on and still feel good about your progress. So what about that final 20%? Well, over time, and as you occasionally review, you'll find that you just naturally shore up that extra 20%. In fact, sometimes you'll go back to review and you'll be amazed at how much easier something is to play and how much better it sounds than when you first learned it. So, does this 80% thing always work? No, it doesn't. It works for material that's sequential, things that are step-by-step, one built on the other. A great example of this is the Beginner's Journey course, which is very sequential. Everything built on each other. And there are many courses in the RGS library that are like that. When a course is not designed that way, such as the supersonic warm-up exercises, those are just different levels and you pick and choose. I'll say right in the introduction to the course that this is not a sequential course. It's not a useful technique for material that is non-sequential, and especially for the daily practice sessions in the guitar gym. You really do need both types of learning material. Think of learning a language. It's very useful to have step-by-step grammar lessons and courses that teach you phrases and pronunciations in some kind of step-by-step sequential manner can boost your progress tremendously. At the same time, it's critical that you have opportunities to just speak and even fumble or struggle to understand what somebody else is saying. In fact, even though it's painful, this is likely where most of the learning happens. I learned this the hard way after learning to speak Spanish several years ago. After 2 years of taking college-level Spanish, and by the way, got perfect grades in every class, I still couldn't hold even a simple conversation in Spanish. Somewhat frustrated, I ended up signing up for a course that involved me going to live with a family in Spain for a couple of weeks. Now, this family was instructed to not speak a word of English to me. It was quite a humbling experience and not just a little bit painful, but I now look at it as one of the highlights of my life. And here's the thing. After just 2 weeks of fumbling, I could communicate in Spanish. It was night and day. It got me over that hurdle of being shy to even try speaking because I might look foolish. I went on to make friends who speak Spanish and I spent time with them. Even though the learning wasn't sequential, I made incredible progress compared to the previous 2 years. Now I enjoy traveling through Spanish-speaking countries and communicate with people from all over the world. And I'm still learning, so it makes it even more fun. I'm sure those years of studying grammar and sequential lessons at school helped. But I'm also sure that if I had been willing to fumble and feel uncomfortable sooner, I would have learned much faster. So as you've probably realized, the language of guitar is no different. Do the sequential lessons, but be willing to stretch. The guitar gym is a perfect place to get this experience, but not the only place. You might also want to consider jamming with other people, venturing into an open mic. You might want to try recording an exercise or a song that you're working on and posting it on the forum. That'll stretch you a little bit. And consider also trying some of the quick win lessons, but with no intention on mastering them. Just trying them out, even struggling, and moving on to something else. Above all, just be willing to let yourself fumble a little bit and let that be okay. That, in the long run, will actually be a skill that will help you probably more than any technique you learned on playing guitar. Thank you for joining me today. In this video, I mentioned several courses that are a part of my Real Guitar Success guitar learning program. If you're interested, I'll put a link down in the description below so you can find out more. I'm curious what your thoughts are about when to move on. Let us know in the comment section below, and let's start a conversation. That way we can all benefit from each other's ideas. And remember, playing guitar is a journey, not a destination. You deserve to love your journey. Let me know how I can help.